It's Wednesday, January 20th, and time for your Barbados Today morning news update. Government has done a reasonably good job in managing the COVID-19 pandemic, but has not gone far enough to minimize the economic impact of the health crisis on the country. So says Barbadian economist Carlos Fort. And Fort, who is based in Canada, is recommending that government put several measures in place to assist residents and businesses by extending unemployment benefits and offering discounts on land and fuel taxes, among other things.
I would also like to call on the government to extend unemployment benefits to 12 months, provide a monthly stipend to those who do not qualify for unemployment benefits but would have lost more than 75% of pre pandemic income, significantly increase capital spending on roads, the water distribution network, sewage and waste management systems, and any other public infrastructure that will be needed in the coming years. Implement a legal framework for material reductions in residential and commercial rents and utilities, and provide material discounts to the public for land taxes, fuel taxes, and tariff reductions on select imported goods, especially food and essential goods. It is time for some leadership on the economy. We now know that the best program is a bust. It was destined to be. It was an ill conceived, disguised hotel bailout with no real clarity of purpose. It would be substantive if the Motley administration would demonstrate the same determination to easing the financial burden on Barbadians and mitigating the economic and social fallout as it has repeatedly strived to do for hotels and most recently tourists.
However, Fort tells Barbados Today that residents should look to the future with optimism, even as he urged the government to embrace calls by medical practitioners to improve protocols, including those that govern arrivals to the country.
I am calling on the Motley administration to embrace BAMP's recommendations for improving the public health protocols, including the travel and quarantine protocols. It may also be necessary to implement a moratorium on travelers staying for less than 6 weeks, while extending the current curfew restrictions on mobility for another month until the end of February.
Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic says he will take the second dose of his COVID-19 vaccine in public. The promise comes less than a week after Prime Minister Mia Mottley revealed that she, along with Bostic, Attorney General Dale Marshall, and 5 other medical professionals, had been vaccinated. It also comes amid much public concern that none of those vaccinated had done so publicly.
Yes, there was an issue in relation to doing the first job, taking the first job in public, but I assure you the second one will be done in public. And without going into details, I'll give you an example of how things can be at times. Last year, back in March or so, when we were scrambling to get handheld thermometers for doing temperature checks, we were able to get some from a source, a friendly government, if you like. But we could not go public at that time because if something is required in another country, there are some sensitivities when it comes to supplies leaving. And so in order to protect persons, then it is not always possible to do things publicly. But I give you the assurance, and I can tell you that the vaccines were taken, and the second dose, whenever that is due, you can be sure that that is going to be public.
Meantime, Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George says the Caribbean Public Health Agency is now in possession of 10 positive COVID-19 samples from Barbados in a bid to test for new variants of the virus.
The tests were sent on Monday of this week, and CARPHA has received those tests, and we hope to be able to report to you shortly. This is very vital information. As you know, there are several new strains around, and we believe that these strains have greater ability to infect individuals. The scientists tell us that these persons, they have a greater ability to infect, but their disease may not be as severe. So we are still very hopeful. This is a priority for the Ministry of Health, though. Once we get that information, we will share it.
In other news, formerly at employees in Barbados and the rest of the region are again crying out for financial assistance as they continue to wait on millions of dollars in unpaid salaries and pensions. Hundreds of the airline's staff were sent on the breadline last year as the island hopper underwent court-sanctioned restructuring. But in what appears to be a last-ditch effort to bring awareness to their situation, the workers took their plight to social media, hoping that others would share their messages. They also called on the governments of Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Dominica to come to their rescue.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To news from the region, the Caribbean and other countries in the Americas must intensify public health interventions to limit exposure to the COVID-19 pandemic. So warned the director of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Caricia Etienne, who said safety guidelines of social distancing, limiting gatherings, wearing masks, and hand washing remains the best hope for reducing the number of COVID-19 cases.
In the last week, we saw more than 2.5 million new cases of COVID-19 in the region of the Americas. That is more than half of all global infections. In the same period, 42,000 people from the Americas have lost their lives to the pandemic. This sustained boom in cases is sobering proof that our region and our world is failing to control this coronavirus. In fact, too many places, public policies are not congruent with the severity of the situation. And many of us have relaxed the control measures that we know work, which have helped us stay healthy and kept hospitals functioning up to now.
And finally, the turbulent 2020 election cycle in the U.S. comes to a close today, with President Donald Trump leaving office and President-elect Joe Biden taking the oath of office as the 46th President of the United States, alongside his Vice President Kamala Harris. More from CBS News.
Mr. Biden is preparing for an inauguration day upended by COVID-19 and security concerns, with Washington locked down like never before. There will be no public spectators in attendance and a mostly empty National Mall, protected by 25,000 National Guard. The president-elect and his family will begin their day with a church service at the Cathedral of St. Matthew the Apostle. Then it's off to the U.S. Capitol, where Mr. Biden will deliver his inaugural address, a speech calling for unity and healing, with a direct appeal to the former president's supporters. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, and Mr. Biden by Chief Justice John Roberts. Lady Gaga will sing the national anthem. Jennifer Lopez and Garth Brooks are also set to perform. Later, the Bidens will head across the Potomac River to Arlington National Cemetery to lead a wreath laying at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier with former Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama and their wives. From there, the new president and vice president will be escorted by troops to the White House, followed by a virtual inaugural parade. COVID had already canceled the inaugural balls, so the Bidens will celebrate with a concert led by Bruce Springsteen.
That's news. But for the very latest, visit us at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media in bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM.